Hi everyone, I'm Niknaz and it's my pleasure to welcome you to another AEC+tech Talk organized by AEC+tech. AEC+tech is a platform, a website, and a community-driven database of the latest and greatest technologies and new tools in the AEC space. So as the AEC is undergoing a significant transformation driven by AI, automation, and next generation BIM tools, today I'm very excited to have three incredible tech leaders with us who have spent years in the industry building and working with technologies and AI. This event will be recorded and saved on our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions for our panelists during the event, please feel free to post them on the LinkedIn or YouTube chat box. So as we all know, architecture and AEC projects have such long life cycles, starting from programming, going all the way to construction administration. Today, the three powerful products being presented cover different phases of the design process, of course, with a lot of overlaps. Schema focuses on the earlier stages of design, while Motif is focused from schematic design to construction documentation, and DTO or design together automates the construction documentation phase. That's also the order of the presentations. Marty with Schema will go first, followed by Matt with Motif and Juhun with DTO. So with that, I'm going to briefly introduce Marty, and then we'll invite him to talk more about Schema. Marty Rozmanith, co-founder and CTO at Skema AI, is a seasoned entrepreneur and AEC professional with over 30 years of experience spanning startups and major software companies. A key player in Revit's early development, he later led global AEC strategy at Dassault Systems. Now at Schema, he focuses on improving design and BIM workflows through knowledge reuse. His work on modular construction and digital twins has been featured in the Wall Street Journal and Forbes. So it's wonderful to have you with us, Marty. Please feel free to share your screen and tell us more about Schema and your work.
Thanks, Niknaz. I appreciate the invitation to present Schema to your audience. I think I'm sharing my screen right now, so let me know if you don't see it.
Yep, we can see.
Yeah, got it. Very good. All right, so I'm going to talk to you a bit about what Schema is, what it isn't, the big idea behind it, and what it can do for a design team and the value you can get out of it. It's basically an overview, and I'm going to show you, I think, the latest and greatest additions that we've put into the software. Before I get into the explanation, I just want to say we've been saying that it's a fast forward button ever since we first started talking about this, before we even introduced the alpha of the software. And I think we even had this recorded in a next dev presentation from almost 3 years ago at this point, that we called this a fast forward button, that it's a fast forward button for a team using BIM. So while we do focus on the early part of the project, the reason that Schema is useful is that it takes fully fleshed out BIM arrangements from your current projects and past projects and allows you to easily reuse those. And I'll show you how that happens. But the idea behind this is we're a fast forward button. We're not really intended as a collaboration platform. You get into Schema, you fast forward your project, you take the results of that and you put it wherever you want. And we've evolved that idea, and I'll talk about that. So very basically, just to get into it, Schema is web-based software. So there's nothing to install, runs in a web browser. It's sort of table stakes for all of the new design apps that are coming out that either have AI incorporated in them or just are doing design in a browser, right? So it's web-based software. It has a data-driven workflow. So there are no files or file formats. You're doing live data all the time. It has live updates. It's multi-user. It has all the things that you would expect from modern software on the web. It's easy to learn and use. It has web services integration out of the box. This is what we're calling the Swiss Army knife idea. We're not intending Schema to be a platform. It's more like we're intending it to be a Swiss Army knife that understands how to connect things together. And we'll talk about that also. Another thing to know about us is that we have no technical dependencies on any major vendor. We're not written on top of, say, Forge or Autodesk APS or any other vendor's tech stack. We've written this whole entire tech stack that we've been demoing for the last couple of years, so that we don't have any, there's nobody's ability to turn off the components that we're using if they don't like what we're doing. And this idea of Schema as being embeddable as an extension, which takes the Swiss Army knife idea and extends it to be what we call the tool chain idea, which is borrowed from movies and gaming industries, where they're constantly building these tool chains for new projects where they have ad hoc teams that are used to using different tools working together. So I'll get into what Schema isn't in a minute, but I want to tell you the big idea that it starts with, and it's based on this a sketch in a book called Refabricating Architecture from 25 years ago, around the time Revit got started. This idea is also the basis for prefab in delivering the building. But what we've done with Schema is tried to make a design equivalent of it. If you look at the top diagram, when people spend 8 hours a day or whatever picking points in a BIM tool like Revit, you might be picking those points, creating walls, doors, and windows. Revit's creating objects. The objects are storing metadata. They're capturing what the relationships of one object is to another. It's building a big web of objects as you pick points. Schema doesn't work that way. What Schema does is it takes the result of a BIM platform and it looks at past projects to say, oh, these are interesting assemblies or whole layouts that are reusable in this project type, and it builds a catalog of those in a way that makes those easily reusable so that you don't have to start from scratch on the next project. And that's really the big idea. It allows you to work with whole chunks of the building as opposed to individual data entry for walls, doors, windows as what you're doing. And so when we first came out with this a couple of years ago, the idea was we called it the first BIM knowledge reuse engine, because it really ingested the BIM data from a team that had used BIM for years, and many architects had 10, 15 years worth of this data sitting on file servers. And we've evolved this idea, but the idea when we explained this was there's really two sides to Schema's technology. One is this Schema AI side, where it's an easy to use, sketching in a web browser with some simulation, and this really easy to use block and stack with this special feature called morphing, in order to be able to take the things we harvest from previous projects and make them sort of infinitely flexible puzzle pieces. But that the building itself, solving the partie, is this blocking and stacking exercise with these 3D puzzle pieces and with the generators in order to help you come up with the solution that meets the program requirements as easily as possible. With the result of that then being able to generate some high quality BIM data straight out of the software in a minute to a minute and a half, as opposed to 6 or 8 weeks. And so that was the idea, is that it's schematic to BIM in minutes, not months, and that it's not a throwaway conceptual feasibility tool where you then have to remodel everything in a BIM tool like Revit. Rather, we take the BIM you already have, productize that. That allows us to produce the complete BIM output. And because the BIM that you feed into it has your office standards already embedded into them, the models that Schema produces already have those office standards and best practices embedded in the output. And so that is, I think, pretty important about the way our system works. It's meant to produce native Revit objects out of the box for anything that you can produce inside Schema. The mechanism by which we enable that is to look through the projects. We then build up an analytical model of what we see. As we get more and more data from more and more architects, we're using computer vision techniques in AI to recognize the relationships between these things. And then we take that analytical model, database that up in the Schema cloud, and we associate a whole bunch of binary Revit objects to that layout, so that when we morph and stretch and change the shape and size of that layout for a future project, the Revit objects know how to follow that and update, so that you work with things at a high level of abstraction, but then we can produce a high level of detail without having to do any additional work when you produce the BIM model. So we're just going to show you real quickly this big idea at work. So you take a bunch of stuff in Revit. Typically, we've just organized these as groups because people have used groups in Revit to kind of represent these sorts of assemblies. I'm showing you the classic apartment building layouts as the things that we make up for our catalog in this case. And then we have a generator that allows someone doing a design to lay those out really quickly. And then we have morphing that allows you to then make them unique to the project and produce something new out of the starting point you got from data in a past project. It's not that we want you to do cookie cutter things that all look the same. It's that we just want to take the time out from having to start from scratch, but allow you to use those things in a flexible way. And then, we don't have to solve everything in Schema. We don't expect you to do 100% of the design in Schema. We expect to be able to produce 60 to 70% of the scope of the project, and then you might be doing the last 30 in a BIM tool. Here, we're doing the morphing. We're taking these units and we're turning them into more trapezoidal shapes so that we have a different facade. We're doing this to get some interesting looks on the outside of the building. And then we're going to use that and directly generate the Revit data from it. Because we have this principle that everything in Schema will produce well-structured native Revit data out of this. And this is part of the fact that we have some of the folks on the team that helped create Revit to understand some of these structures internally and how to produce this data well. And so that's the main, that's the main output, is to fast forward this process and save up to 2 months of work to get to a point where you could produce some deliverables so that the firm can get paid. This is an example. We've shown this example a lot of some output from Schema. In this case, this is, again, a residential example, but we've done this with hospitality, with schools, with data centers, medical, retail. There's a number of different project types that use this sort of horizontal workflow to achieve the models for their particular building type. By just using this content strategy of generating a catalog from previous projects. In this particular example, the podium here was hand modeled in Revit, and then the blocks above with all of the room layouts were done in Schema, and then the models were combined. So, you don't have to do everything in Schema. Like I said, you can mix, match, and choose depending on what approach suits the project team the best. So the idea then with this implementation is that designers can then experiment with whole chunks of the building instead of individual layouts, and that you can test things by using generators. And we keep improving and covering more use cases with the layout generators that we have. We just showed something to we have a group called the Pioneer customers that see things before we release them. We just showed them what we call the puzzle piece solver, where sometimes we find that there are units designed to have adjoining edges with other units for different purposes. And so now we're including those in the solvers. I'll talk a little bit more about how you'll be able to write your own solvers and include them in our solver pipeline so you can inject your own logic into what we're doing. But this idea of experimenting with the whole chunks of the building and turning that into a building and using this block and stack as a key capability in a tool chain is what we're calling this capability of Swiss Army knife, because this is something that every designer has to do on a project. You have to come up with the partie. And so even though we've laid this out where there's a conceptual side of Schema and then this ability to generate the high LOD BIM, we've now gone and integrated not just our own conceptual tools, but integrated tools people use every day like SketchUp and Rhino, with this idea of Schema being a Swiss Army knife that knows how to ingest that and apply this blocking and stacking process to it so that you can then use that to generate the Revit data from it. So those are some pretty interesting examples. Those are some of the latest things that we've added into this. We demonstrated the SketchUp functionality at Trimble's Worldwide Conference back in November. We have just literally shown the Rhino functionality to our Pioneer customers a couple of weeks ago. So let me just give you a quick demo of those. Again, starting with the catalog functionality, we take pieces out of Revit to turn them into a catalog. When that catalog's in Schema, it's a simplified version that looks like this. But now, instead of starting the project in Schema, we're actually starting it in SketchUp Desktop. So in this case, we're massing up a building in SketchUp Desktop, and then we launch Schema as a extension in SketchUp. And what we can do with this extension is we can mirror data back and forth between SketchUp and Schema. And then in Schema, we can go through the normal blocking and stacking process. Now, in this example, what I've done is we've done it double time, but we haven't cut out any of the steps. So in real time, this rationalization of the floor plate takes about 4 minutes. In this demo, we double speeded it, so it's going to take about 2 minutes. But this is essentially the process you go to rationalize a floor plate in this type of building in Schema. So we're figuring out the elevator core. We're not actually going to lay out the core. We'll do that later in our BIM tool. And now at the end, we have this angled end wall condition, and we don't have units that match that. So we're just going to mass in some shapes and then use the morphing to create some units that'll fit that. We're also going to put another stair core out here. And again, we'll resolve that in the BIM system later. And now you see the morphing creating the units on the end there. And now that's the floor plate that will apply to all the floors of the building so that we get that side. We then run a generator on the other side. And here's our preliminary layout for our project. Now we'll take this using, again, that extension methodology and mirror LOD 200 versions of the units into SketchUp, because now in SketchUp we can do things that SketchUp has, like diffusion rendering inside, and start getting some feedback from the client about what facade ideas we might want to use. In this case, client gives us some feedback, says, the top of that building has good views. I want to improve the revenue generation. Could you redesign the top and use some more premium units and maybe change the materials? And now when we do that change inside Schema, what we'll do is instead of generating the LOD 200, we'll generate the LOD 350 so that we see the actual walls, doors, windows, and all the furniture, fixtures, and equipment that generates. And now we'll synchronize that into SketchUp. And the reason for this is that we actually designed this workflow around an actual customer of ours in Atlanta, TVS Design, where they actually then go and do the conceptual curtain wall design in SketchUp. That was this principle's preferred workflow was actually to deal with the curtain wall preliminaries in SketchUp. So in this case, we're doing the building assembly from its component parts in Schema, mirroring that into SketchUp, doing the curtain wall in SketchUp, and then mirroring the curtain wall into Schema. And then again, because of the rule that everything that we can have in Schema produces native Revit objects, you can see then the full fidelity data as native Revit objects. If you cut a floor plan, you'll see exactly what you would expect to see from a Revit model and a floor plan, and you're ready to document this or take any of the other sort of documentation automation tools that Revit has and apply them to the output of this process. So there's sort of the tool chain and the Swiss Army knife idea applied to SketchUp. It's pretty similar applying it to Rhino. In this case, we're going to use Schema as a Rhino extension. So we got Rhino desktop now on the right, Schema on the left. And we're going to take our project environment and actually first mirror that into Rhino with the terrain and the surrounding buildings. And then one of the things that this allows is, survey data in Rhino, because Rhino has all of the typical kind of AutoCAD drawing functionality mirrored into it. The ability to take those things, get site and surveys, and use those and mirror those back into Schema. So again, we have a two-way live synchronization between Rhino and Schema. If we have a site that we've created or brought in a DWG for or DXF or PDF or whatever we want in Rhino, we can then take that and use that as our construction site in Schema. We can do mesh edits on the site and mirror those into Schema if we make those edits in Rhino. In this case, we have a massing for an actual building in New York in Rhino, and now we've mirrored that into Schema. And then just like I showed you on the SketchUp example, you can take all the blocking and stacking tools with that as your starting mass and use all the generators and do the layout for this particular building in New York. So this is the idea behind Schema, the fact that it's a very useful best-in-class block and stack that allows you to reuse your BIM data, and now not just having to do it in our web app, but being able to start the project in whatever your favorite tool is and use us as a mediator between those tools and a BIM system like Revit. You can get some pretty significant project outcomes. So first off, every architect who uploads our data to us their data is confidential. We don't share any of the data between the architects. We don't train an AI on them. So when we do any sort of computer vision techniques to go and build the catalog, those AIs are pre-trained on generic data in order to do the recognition. We're not training any of our stuff on the data that we're getting from our customers. That's a pretty big deal these days. because of the copyright implications, right? The next is significant project time savings. So we've had teams that are saving 6 to 8 weeks because they don't have to go and take a whole team to build the Revit model. We do it in a minute and a half. Increase in design quality, increase in project profitability, potentially. Some significant potential to decrease documentation errors because of the consistency this affords. The ability to spend less effort winning work, especially with this tool chain idea that I just demonstrated using the favorite existing tools you know already. And then the ability to retain new talent and attract new talent because you're using best-in-class workflows and best-in-class tools. So with that, I'll just say I really appreciate the time to present to you. Since we just announced Rhino, we're putting together a kind of tiger team, early adopter, pioneer set of customers to test out our Rhino stuff. If you're interested in that, please reach out to me or reach out to someone at our company, and we'll be happy to give you the details. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Marty. So our audience will post their questions and we'll ask you more questions at the end. But I'm very excited about all the features that you shared and the fact that architects are not starting from a blank page. They are starting every single project from all the data that they have in the office. So we'll get back to you with more questions. Thanks so much. So our next distinguished speaker is Matt Jezyk. So Matt is the VP of product at Motif Systems. I'm sure you've heard of Motif, especially in this last couple days. Matt is a technology leader with over 2 decades at Autodesk, where he played a key role in developing Revit and led the team behind Dynamo. He later worked at Tesla and Rivian, creating software to optimize gigafactory design and construction. A pioneer in computational and generative design, he has presented at major industry conferences. Matt holds a Bachelor of Architecture from Carnegie Mellon University. Thanks so much for your time, Matt, and we can't wait to hear about Motif.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Niknas. And I really appreciate going after Marty. We worked together back in the early days at the Revit startup and at Autodesk. And a lot of what I've learned from the industry, I've learned from Marty. So good stuff. So cool. So thank you for having me. And I want to help continue this discussion that Marty started around really how are we trying to advance building information modeling and what are the new technologies that architects and engineers can start to use to do better work. So you'll see a trend. I really like the progression from talking about Schema now to Motif and then later on into DTO. So what is Motif? So we're a new company. We just started about 2 years ago, and we've been under stealth mode, building some new things. And we are building a next generation design platform. The overall problem space is architecture, engineering, construction. What we are announcing, we just launched our first product about 2 days ago, and that is building on this new platform, but leveraging changes in the industry and the changes in the way that people are working, and bringing that more to bear in the architecture and engineering space. So the specific problem that we looked at was, as we know, design happens in these siloed desktop applications, Rhino, Revit, SketchUp, AutoCAD. But especially during the pandemic, what has happened is that the way that teams have collaborated has changed dramatically. So if you look at the adoption of new tools that are digital, infinite canvas, web-based tools like Miro and Mural and Figma, that's profoundly changed the way people have been working recently. And interestingly, that the adoption of those tools hasn't gone down since after the pandemic when people are back in the office. But the concept of bringing people together around a digital whiteboard and literally sharing ideas and concepts, I think holds true to how we work in the profession. So how can we do that in a way that actually makes a little bit more sense and is more appropriate for our problems that are necessarily three-dimensional problems? And that's kind of where Motif comes in. So what if you had a 3D Miro, that literally was able to be the interstitial tissue that could connect between different applications wherever you like to do your design work, Rhino, Revit, SketchUp, AutoCAD, Grasshopper, Dynamo, whatever. But you can share that information and bring it into a collaboration environment and actually bring in other people to the conversation. So the design principal at your company, the project manager that might have been technical before, but is now sitting on airplanes or sitting in meetings, how do they contribute? Right now, the state of the art is hand them a set of PDF files and mark them up somewhere. But what if they could start to feel involved in the project and contributing and being able to mentor? That's an opportunity for any of these new platforms. And then ultimately, to help people do better work. So that's kind of where we started. So we're building a new platform. This is the first step of many, but what we're doing is focusing on building out better design collaboration simply from a 2D standpoint first. Simple tools we'll see in a second, but extending that to work directly in 3D on 3D models that are live linked from the primary design applications. But you can sketch on top of them with the same simple tools. You can comment, markup, review, explore 4 different options, all those kinds of things directly in this environment with the same tools. And then also mark up sheets, take a set of drawings that you might have to send out 400 sheets to PDF right now and use a different tool. Why not just do that in the same environment here? So we'll walk through a couple of these workflows. So this is what Motif looks like. It's a clean, simple web application that runs in your desktop, in a browser. There's no install. There's nothing else like that. It'll run on your iPad, multi-touch, all those kinds of things. We have an idea of a project and then boards. So, a board is sort of like a workspace that can be shared. This is all inherently collaborative and multi-user. So here we have Motif. You can notice a really simple user interface, just a tab of about 10 tools on the left-hand side. And all I'm going to do right now is just start a new project and create basically a concept board, like a mood board, looking at precedents and sort of ideas, inspirations. But you don't have to be a CAD person for this. You don't have to be a computational design person. If you can use PowerPoint, you can use Motif. That's kind of where we're starting from. But the benefit is that you're in this infinite canvas in 2D. You can create presentations, you can explore ideas, and then more importantly, you can start to collaborate with your peers, right? So you can bring them in to the mix. Because we've built in multi-user and multiplayer workflows from the very beginning, you can see my colleagues' cursors running around the screen. So anyone can be added to this project as easily as the first time that you use Zoom, for example, or Slack or any other online tool where you can just click the link and something magic happened. That's what we're shooting for with Motif. So markup, comment, review, those kinds of things in an infinite canvas and with infinite history. So this project is tracking all of your changes across all the clients. And then you see the real-time changes wherever you are. That's the fundamental aspect of any of these new platforms. But what if it was not just a 2-dimensional problem that's simple and easy to use? What if it actually went into 3 dimensions as well? So, as I mentioned before, we're all architects and engineers. We work in 3D. We solve 3D problems. We have plugins to Revit and Rhino right now, and other ones are coming. And the way that works is pretty simple. Motif is just a little helper that's watching over your shoulder. And all it's doing is streaming the information that you have on your screen. So it's what you see is what you get. So the view that you have in Revit will affect exactly what you're streaming to Motif. So if I add walls or windows or doors, or even if I do something like just turn off the curtain wall, that will affect what you see here. And at the same time, those same 2D sketching tools that I've mentioned before work directly in 3D. So I'm sketching directly on top of the model, but inside the 3D space, like not in Zoom where you're on the picture plane or literally taking a photocopy of it. I'm actually able to interact as you would expect as an architect and engineer. I want to get in there and solve real problems in 3D. So that's pretty fundamental. So real-time collaboration in 3D and in a natural sketching interface. And in addition to that, we have other tools. Like I can stream from Sketch or from Rhino in this case. This is like a ceiling feature in this building. And the exercise now is we're collaborating to figure out how to hang that digitally fabricated ceiling from the structure. I can do that directly natively in Motif, have a collaboration session where we're really sketching directly in that and change the source models. And because it's streaming real time, I can see that geometry change happen immediately back in Motif. And then you see these little comment bubbles that are there. I can have a bidirectional link back to the source that will have people help them understand like what they need to do, like, hey, add a bracket or change the structural steel or anything else. So on the Revit side, I'll add a little bit more structural steel. Let me just pause on that for a second. So the same thing, so a real-time change. As soon as that piece of steel drops, it shows up, and then people can start doing the rest of their work. So it's meant to not to be publishing to some central model and reviewing PDF files in a long virtual design and construction process. It's meant to be real-time and interactive and collaborative to speed up that collaboration inside of a team. This can also work with other models, like I just imported a SketchUp model. This is from what we call a static asset. So I can bring in like a OBJ file or GLB or GLTF into this mix and just aggregate any information that you have. So 2D information can be images or PDF files or SVG, and then 3D are the very common file formats that we have. And then you're able to work, and really it's like a mashup environment that you can start sketching wherever you'd like to there. And we're trying to bring the joy and the creativity back to this part of the process. So I mentioned it's not just three-dimensional stuff, it can also be two-dimensional. So let's take away some of the drudgery and bring some of the joy back in marking up drawings too. So in this case, I'm exporting a sheet set from Revit and just exported a set of 24 drawings. So instead of dumping them out to PDF file and having to put them in a different tool like Bluebeam, I can bring them into the same environment here. So using the same sketching and markup tool set that I can use for mood boards and kind of Miro-like things, and also in 3D, I can use that in 2D just to mark up sheets and that kind of thing. And then the comments also go back to Revit so that the draftsperson or architect that's working on those drawings can pick up those changes directly. So that's pretty significant. And then the next time they publish, because we have that infinite history, those changes are essentially slipstreamed in, like that sheet has been reissued, and we track all of that in one spot. So that's some of the fundamental things with Motif as a platform. And then the last part of this is just using it in the same way that one of the joys and essence of Revit was things were real time and coordinated. Everything was up to date. And that same philosophy holds true in Motif, where this is a live view of whatever models you have, and I can make views of those, right? So like you can in SketchUp or Revit, you can switch between different live views and use them as a storytelling technique. Like architects are storytellers. So you can walk someone through the model. But more importantly, as you change something in the model, all of those views update in real time. So if I just add something like this mural, you can see the little thumbnails update, and as I navigate through, all those changes are up to date. So it's never like, oh, I changed it in one spot and it didn't get picked up. Of course, it's going to be the same. Where that gets significant is when you start to pull the different design options or ideas that you have together and make a presentation out of it. So like in this case here, if I looked at 4 different options for curtain wall, I could have those in a board, one of these infinite canvases, and then start to pull together basically presentation information. So I might have an Enscape rendering, for example, that's coming from that. So if I change the Revit model, then the Enscape rendering updates, and we track that information too. So all the different ideas that you have can be run through Motif and then assembled into a presentation. So here we're showing the frames feature that we have, which is basically like sheets in Revit or PowerPoint slides. You can take that information that's consistent, so all your renderings, all your plans, sections, elevations, and then also the 3D views, and put them into a presentation and be assured that they're always up to date. So you're minimizing that invisible work of like, wait, did I update that rendering? I thought I slacked that to you last Friday. None of that happens anymore because all that information is there in one online source, and more importantly is linked back to where the information started from in whatever platform that is. And then because it's an online tool, you don't have to worry about sending out PDF files. Like you could literally send a link to this presentation to a client or whoever you'd like to share it with, and be assured that they can see this information and mark it up or use that for the presentation. And it's always going to be consistent. So those are the key things that we're working on in Motif at this point. We're trying to, again, build a on top of some of the concepts around BIM and extend them to the larger design team, and also build an open platform that could link into things like Schema or other newer tools in the same way that we just showed on top of Revit and Rhino. So we're trying to be the kind of integral source that is a new alternative in this space around BIM and the way we advance architectural engineering design. And those are some of the core concepts. So like I said, so we just launched. We're updating the software very, very frequently. So about every month or so, we'll have a new version out. But these are the core concepts that we're working on. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Congratulations for the launch. Now everyone is talking about Motif, and it was wonderful to, see it firsthand how it works. So I'm just curious. So it creates the connection between all this software, and you can also build models and draw like 2D drawings inside Motif as well, right?
Yeah, so we have drawing tools that we're building out. You can see them like there's just normal like lines and rectangles and freehand tools. The boards that we have are real world size, so they know what model units are that you're in. So you could draw out like a space plan, for example. We don't have like a full creation environment set up to make walls and windows and doors yet, but we're building out the fundamentals of a new platform.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Very exciting. I use Figma and Miro almost every day. So this is very exciting to have it for the architecture space. Great, thank you. So our last speaker, last but not the least, is Juhun Lee. So Juhun is connecting all the way from Korea, I understand right now, right? What time is it, Juhun, right now? It's probably nighttime. So thanks for your time. So I'm going to briefly introduce you, and then we'll invite you to talk more about DTO. So Juhun Lee, co-founder and CTO at DTO, or Design Together, develops AI-powered design tools for the AEC industry with a background in computational design. He has led digital transformation efforts and focuses on machine learning, interoperability, and automation. A frequent speaker and published author, he also co-founded InCode Boston, a community for computational design professionals. So thanks again for joining. I'm going to share your screen.
All right. Can you hear me well?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ignas, for having DTO and myself here today. This is a very exciting event to be part of. So let me introduce who we are and what we do, especially related to automating our workflow. So DTO stands for Design Together, where we are developing an AI-driven design support platform for architects. As our name suggests, our main goal is to become a design companion to empower architects' daily practice, especially focusing on area we believe where the industry struggle the most. First of all, our team is all from the AEC industry. Not just these 4 founding core team, but almost all members are either architects / architectural designers or software people with AEC software development experience. We believe that this is very beneficial for us to identify real pain points within architects' daily practice and provide practical solutions to empower architects themselves. So with that, our goal is to provide a very useful tool rather than a fancy fed up technology that just follow the trend. So diving into the topic, automation of our workflow, we believe that there are 2 distinctive automation types. We call divergence and convergence. So divergence could mean exploring possible variation from a set of parameters. Early design stage, we would want to quickly evaluate multiple design options with a given set of design parameters. The main example is computational parametric design approach, and generative AI, which can really improve pre-schematic design phase. And obviously, there are many great tools in the market we all enjoy. The other one, convergence, which is the opposite concept. It is helping you to narrow down the amount of information you need to review and eventually guide you to the best solution among them, such as optimization, decision tree algorithm, or prediction AI sort of things would be good examples of it. DTO has been focusing on the convergent automation aspect because we think we can provide a curated workflow to design problems by having a sequence of convergent automations. For example, we can help you choose the best design approach from many possible options, then help you find the most relevant design reference for that approach, then assist you to come up with the best solution for the design approach you chose earlier. I mean, of course, we can always add more layers to this concept, but the main idea is that as design project move forward at certain point, we all need to make decisions to complete the project. So as I mentioned, during pre and schematic design phase, the divergent automation approach is very powerful because, yes, as we all know, you need to explore many different options. But once you have a great schematic design set during DD and CD phase, now the convergent automation can play a big role in resolving all those complex construction detailing process. So we believe that this is the crucial aspect of design project, and that's the area where DTO is focusing on automating. So first step is a curation of design guidance and solution. At a call-out detail view level, our agent identifies the design problem. For this case, on the left side, is a parapet condition with rain screen, CMU backup, membrane roofing. Then provides a curated list of design reference the designer must consider to properly complete this specific design problem. Then also provide a high quality detail solution where architect can utilize to jumpstart their detail workflow. Here, what we would like to achieve by the convergent automation is cut down all unnecessary time and effort to search useful design references, energy code lines, building science background knowledge, and other things. So basically, all information you need to complete this design. It is very hard to show with an image, but our detailed solution in the middle is actually a vector-based interactive diagram where you can hover, zoom in, zoom out, click to further narrow down the information get displayed on the right panel. For example, if you click on insulation part, DTO will show only insulation and thermal related design guidance. So another layer of convergent automation. And we can expand this to a building plan or section scale. Now what we do here is that our agent automatically analyzes a wall section or floor plan and populates call-out views in Revit in this case at location where you where you need to resolve detail for. So again, this is a convergent automation narrowing down the design scope you need to tackle on. The product search also can benefit from convergent automation. There are many products you can search online, and there are many great web platforms you can use for searching for products. But here, DTO utilized the interactive design diagram again to make product search super easy. For example, if you want to explore rain screen product, you simply click a rain screen element in our diagram while you're working on this detail. Then our agent will deliver only relevant product information right in front of you. Of course, it uses other parameters as well, such as project location, design condition, such as like roof parapet for this case, climate zone, or etc., to further curate which products are most relevant. So these are a few features that we're really trying to bring the convergent automation approach. Now, I also like to show our vision, the true AI vision from DTO. We are developing an AI companion that can read and understand drawings and design workflows, then interact with you in real time to support every step of your construction detail process. This will include all previous features. So it will give you summarized design references, design solution, and even bring BIM component that you will need for your drafting task or Revit view, for example, so that you can just import and kickstart your detailing process. And also think of it as having a senior architect next to you, someone who can flag potential issues in real time and guide you toward a stronger design outcomes. So our goal is not just a tool, rather it's more like a virtual design mentor built to grow alongside your daily practice. Now, I want to close with real-time, real-world pilot result. So one of our customer did the pilot testing without a DTO. There were two junior architect got task for insulated wall panel and roof detail. The result was quite dramatic. They basically showed like 85% time saving for one detailed drawing production. So they're happy, and we are also happy. So if you'd like to have more conversation with us, please scan this QR code or visit dto.design and book a demo. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Thanks for sharing all the great details as well. Sorry, do you mind actually for lowering your speaker? I can hear myself.
I will mute myself.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks a lot. So yeah, great stuff. Very insightful. Thanks for sharing all about these amazing products and what they are doing and what they can do to reshape, the industry and make the process and the workflow way more optimized. So my first question for all of you is that with all these amazing products that you are working on, so what is the biggest adoption challenge for the users and how are you addressing that? Because, AEC is famous for, it's like, I don't know, the second least digitized industry in the world. And someone was saying that it's not that we don't want to try and, or we're not interested in testing new things. It's just that we are so comfortable with the way we are working and with all the existing tools that we have. So with these great, powerful solutions that you're offering, so the users that you talk to, your customers, your potential customers, so what do you see as the biggest adoption challenge, and how do you solve that? How do you address it? How do you incentivize them to, test your products? We can start maybe same order. Marty, if you want to go first, and then Matt and Drew.
Yeah, I mean, when we looked at the problem space, like I said, I characterized this as a fast forward button as opposed to a collaboration tool. There were things out there, for instance, Speckle and other tools out there that wanted to be on the web where it was solving the multi-user collaboration. But one of the things that we really believe, we originally started this company and product inside a sustainability company, and then we finally spun it out and renamed it Schema. But the idea is that no matter what you produce the design in, eventually it goes into a very inefficient construction process that has very high waste built into it because of the way the engineer to order process works. One of the things that we see about Schema is that as we produce models where you understand the assembly makeup of the project, that can then inform how the supply chain might be organized in order to more efficiently deliver it, you can really move the needle on that waste and on the costs that owners are subsidizing on every project. And so our goal ultimately with adoption is to produce some serious pull from the owner side, because the owner is paying the architects, the owner is paying everybody. In the meantime, we're just working on trying to get the architects to, like Matt said, bring the joy back into the process so that you're not starting from scratch and having to redraw every wall or stair or whatever. So that when the owners realize that there's some benefit to this automation and that the architects that have adopted it first should be the leading architects they should work with, that we've been able to equip the firms to be in that discussion and in the room with those clients. And I agree with Matt. I don't see it as an either or. I see this as an ecosystem of web applications with peer-to-peer connections where you take best in class and you put it together where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And I think that's the most exciting thing about some of the things that we're seeing right now.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Marty on that, as that this is one of the only industries where it seems like people are looking for a single answer. Like, there is no single answer. It depends on the problem. I think getting back to the original question, change is hard. There are people that are going to stay up until 11 o'clock at night, looking at the new tools. And then there are people that, need to get home and take their kid to soccer practice and really don't have the time to think about new things all the time. And they just want to, do what they do every day. That's okay. What we're trying to do with Motif is really fits into that same category of how do you look more broadly at the problem and not get over fixated on the technology. Clearly, there are heavy technology problems to solve, and we have the right people to do that, both on the collaboration side, multi-user stuff, AI, ML, all those kinds of things are great. We can talk about that forever, but it doesn't matter unless you're solving a real user problem and you're doing it in a way that ultimately provides value. And going back to actually one of our former bosses, Leonid Raiz, he was heavy on this idea of like, people aren't going to change unless there's an order of magnitude difference in what they're doing today versus what they could be doing, right? So it needs to be 10x better to get people to switch. So how do you define better? Is it more efficient? Is it better quality? Is it just more time to do the things you like to do? Architects are notoriously bad at managing their time. So we're looking at it as 10x better as far as the sheer aesthetic quality and the collaborative aspect of it for right now. Other tools like Revit before were 10x better on just the automation and just simply the things that you had to do by hand before of managing all the changes, the software. So what is the next 10x? We think that it's actually more around collaboration and an online tool that brings in the best breed from different tools, right? So we want to build an open ecosystem and help facilitate that to connect to wherever that the best is and bring that together in a way that is cohesive for the industry.
For sure. Thanks a lot. Juhun, what do you think?
So, I mean, our case is quite similar to the point where Matt pointed out the new things, fear factor, people. I mean, I can't blame anyone because I sometimes do that too. A new tool, I know how to do that in my way. So we understand that kind of aspect. So what we are trying to do is um, really lowering the learning curve. So when we design the feature, like I explained, our team is basically from the practice or the architect. So when we design a feature or UI UX, not that I'm saying our UI UX is perfect, but really try to align with how architect work when they perform those construction detail process. We're trying to be fitting into that process. And also there's not enough, so we also offer some very highly engaged like onboarding process. So we sort of work through the initial kind of ramping up process, and we also present some innovative idea with some sort of the feature kind of quirks. So like some sort of like a hard to get as a beginner. So we sort of also deliver that kind of approach. Oh, by the way, if you do this setting, you can actually achieve this. So we as a power player, we sort of give that as a instruction. And yeah, I think those approach has been successful, I guess. We are getting quite a lot of interest, inquiry, some sort of pilot, paid customers. So we will keep trying to do better on such thing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we have 2 more minutes. So is there any final comments you want to share with us? What's next for your product? Anything you want to say?
Yeah, I guess if you want to, if I'm starting first again, I think one of the things I think we would all agree on is that in order for anything to get traction, it has to be, you have to remove the barriers to learning it, right? A lot of what we're doing is because this stuff is actually a lot easier to do in web software because you can put layers of knowledge base and training built into product that you would have had to custom write if you were doing desktop apps in the back. So we have that same thing. Our general onboarding is we try and onboard a customer doing what they normally do, which is a charrette or a workshop, and we try and do it in 2 or 3 hours, right? So that there's not this massive training commitment. And I think that is just table stakes. Anybody that's doing software and trying to move the needle in this industry is just going to have to make something that's easy to learn and to try out, because I think, Matt, you're absolutely right. The 10x is super important, and it's not just sort of mentally understanding the 10x, it's trying it out and seeing that there is a 10x and saying, wow, I need to advocate for this because there's a 10x, right? And I think, there's lots of different ways to get 10x in what is the process today. It's so again, we're all coming at it from different bites, but that, I think, it's the common denominator is just, it has to be easy for people to try and then get something so they can evaluate it themselves.
Yep, definitely. Matt?
So we still have time. I think we're at.
Yeah, we have 1 more minute.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go back to that sort of magical experience. Like the first time that you used Slack or Zoom or some other web tool where you just clicked on a link and you were kind of like, wait, that just happened? I'm in this tool that's like a professional tool that I didn't have to download, didn't have to install, didn't have to license, just kind of works. And then to Marty's point, like just the ease of getting associated documentation and sort of that onboarding experience, I think is actually a really valuable thing that gets easily forgotten when you're dealing with technology and software development. But looking at it from the overall product experience and making sure you balance that out is super important.
Yep. Thank you. Juhun, any final comments? Juhun, any final comments?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of those points, and unfortunately, I could not show the full extent of our features. So if you're interested in, please sign up to demo. Our the sales guy Taylor here and Nick, director of content, they do amazing demo, and you will be enjoying the demo. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So I would like to thank all three of you for your time. And then thanks to our audience for being with us today. So with that, we're going to end our webinar. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Okay, thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.